Okay, peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome back to the STEM Files. We are the voice of the STEM talent and Black culture. On tonight's episode, we're sitting down with biomedical scientist Aqeel Muhammad. He's going to talk about not only his journey in biomedical sciences, but as it relates to the pharmaceutical industry on a local level and on a global scale. So definitely tap in for more after this. All right, family. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. This is the STEM Files, where we highlight the best and the brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, especially in the Black community. I am one of your hosts, Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac. I'm a biomedical research scientist with a background in cardiovascular pathobiology, which is the study of how diseases form in the heart and in the blood vessels. I'm joined by my right hand, my best friend, Jabril. What's going on, Fruit?
Yes, sir. What up, what up, what up? Peace and love and blessings, everyone. Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabrillion Engineer, civilian mechanical engineer, focusing on naval ship fluid systems with a background in material science and engineering, understanding the various material classes and how their different structures apply to their various properties. I'm excited to be on the show, as always. More excited for the guests we have today and excited for you all to tap in.
Yes, yes. And for those who are watching, I'm so glad to be back on camera. Last episode it was just my avatar, but I'm back to be on camera, back to being seen by the beautiful audience. And I look forward to tonight's show as well. So we have a biomedical scientist on the show who works in the pharmaceutical industry. And on tonight's program, we're going to be talking about how the pharmaceutical industry is built, how it works, how it's been functioning in terms of the recent COVID-19 pandemic, a global pandemic. And we're also going to be talking about his journey as a biomedical scientist on the educational side, as well as the things he's done for pharmaceutical companies. So without any further ado, like Jabril always says, it's not about us, it's about our guests. So brother Aqeel Muhammad, welcome to the show.
Thank you both. I just want to thank you all so much for the platform that you've built here, and that you. I've been so honored to be invited onto. It's an honor and a privilege, and I just want to thank you all again for just highlighting our Black brothers and sisters who are trying to put their best foot forward where these nation building subjects and topics are concerned. And I can never thank you both enough. So thank you for having me.
Praise be
Yes,
to
thank
Allah.
you, man.
Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, this is everything you just said is the reason why we do the STEM file. So thank you so much
That's
for
right.
that support and acknowledgement. For those who are watching, please hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube page, as well as like the Facebook page. Here are our social media handles. We are the STEM Files on Facebook, the STEM Files on YouTube, at the STEM Files on Instagram. That's the Brilliant Engineer, Tariq Cardiac, every Thursday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, it's a special airing time for 4 p.m. Eastern Time because our guest is live from the United Kingdom. This is the first time, very first time, we've had a guest on the show that is going live with us right now from another country. So
Come
it's
on now,
beautiful
talk.
to have.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we've been doing this for going on 5 years now, and it's beautiful to see how we have evolved, right? To see how we've evolved in the types of guests that we've had on the show and where they're located. So I'm going to stop talking about the show and we're going to start talking about our guests. So Aqeel, please tell us, how you got into biomedical sciences, where did your journey start, and what led you to the pharmaceutical industry?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that introduction. I think to really unpack that question, you have to go back to the beginning, really. And as a child, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, I was always investigating and experimenting in my own way with anything I could find. So I can remember being young and going out in the back garden and catching insects and looking into nest and all this kind of weird stuff that
Right, right,
probably my friends and my neighbors thought was odd, but that was the beginning of my inquisitive and investigational journey. And I
Right.
think over time, that was something that I thank Allah that my parents honed in on, because they noticed those qualities and interests in me. And really, it was a blessing that I was home educated by my parents and
come
got to
on,
spend so much time in close proximity with them. But in particular, my mother, who was then able to tailor my education towards the scientific route after me initially expressing that interest naturally. Because, you know, as
right,
children, we naturally will lean towards that in which we have the most interest in. And for
yes
Right.
me,
sir,
it ended up being, you know, it started with animals and insects and bugs, and then developed into, you know, building robots and all of this kind of stuff. So I think at first it started with me wanting to actually be an inventor. That's how it began.
Mm.
I told my parents I want to invent things. And that was
Nice.
probably, yeah, that was probably age 5 or 6. And you know, we're taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that by that age, your child should have a pretty good understanding of what it is they want to do. And you
talk, come
start
on,
building in on it from there. So yeah, that's how it started. I think my father bought me a book about black scientists and inventors,
Yes.
which I still have to this day. And I went backward and forward looking at all the inventions, the bicycle, the light bulb, and all of this kind of stuff. And really from there, um, that's where the journey started as a child.
mm.
Anyway.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jabril, you want to take it?
Oh yes sir, we're gonna get right into it. So you know, being homeschooled, right? We talk about it all the
Yeah.
time. I was homeschooled second to ninth grade. My younger
Yeah.
brother, a similar time for. So me and my younger brother, I mean, are about 5 years apart. We're both. I'm an engineer currently. He is an aspiring mechanical engineer to get his doctorate in nanotechnology at Howard right now.
Amazing.
And one
Amazing.
of the things I love about homeschooling, as you said, your pace is your own. The
Mm,
distractions are non-existent for the most part, and it
mm,
allows one's brain to naturally develop at the pace that you're
mm,
most comfortable at. So if you need more time, right, you take that time. If you're advancing
mm,
this subject, you move forward. So I
mm,
want to kind of connect that to the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. We talk about nation building disciplines. STEM represents those disciplines, right? But when we talk about biomedical science, right, what in your assessment and your research and your time being a biomedical scientist, how has that discipline bared witness to the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, particularly as we're taught root knowledge and the root of all things and the beginning?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And I think I'll start with this. Um, when you're home educated, there's a lot of time you spend with yourself and getting to know and understand yourself and how you work. But I always say this to people that weren't home educated. Every home educated child, or the majority of home educated children that I meet or I'm blessed to speak to, I find that they're very deep thinkers and problem solvers. And we
Mm,
always go to the root of the problem so that we can understand how to solve future problems that may occur in a similar way. Because when you're home educated, you have to understand the root of what it is that you're trying to learn so that you can progress through the various stages of your schooling. So
right.
for me, it was a great time and a great learning experience for me being home educated. When I first did end up taking my first step into public education, it was definitely a culture shock to me. Not so much the social aspect, but the way in which the subject was taught, or a shortened version of the subject was taught, without really going into the foundation and the origin of the subject that we were being taught. So, and then in
Hmm.
other times, um, the pace was quite slow. So you find yourself getting a little bit frustrated with what it is you're trying to be taught, because you're used to learning at a faster or a slower pace, depending on how it is that you learn. But I think definitely the time that you spend um, really digging into things and understanding it for yourself before always reaching out for help, whether it be your tutor or your mother who or your father who may be teaching you. I think that now that I'm an adult and I'm now involved in a lot of research and development where science is concerned, it allows me to be very patient with my understanding, very patient with that which I'm researching. It allows me to really dig deep into whatever the molecule is or the monoclonal antibody, whatever it may be, to
Right.
understand it in its fullness. Um, um, from all aspects. So what you end up finding is the thing that you actually started researching about with this molecule, you end up finding there's 5, 6, 7 different uses just because you went right to the source, right to the root of what it
Right,
was that
right.
makes up that thing that you were looking into. So I can't thank Allah God enough for the foundation that we were given as homeschool children, bro. I really can't.
Praise be to Allah. One more thing I just love to say, just camo backing off of what you said, getting to the root. You know, in Islam, there are several different places where we see we're going to the source. When we
Teach.
pray, make supplication, salat, or dua, right? There's no intercessor. We don't go to a priest and confess sins. We don't ask someone to pray for us, even though we may, oh,
Teach.
pray for me and my family, but we go to the prayer rug. We stretch our hands out and we pray directly to the God, to go directly to the
Mm,
source of which that wakes us up in the morning, right? That
mm,
allows
mm.
us and provides the environment for which we can excel in. So I think what you are to know is the interconnectedness of the various different STEM disciplines and how the deeper you go, not only the blacker things get, but the more connected things get as well.
Teach.
So thank you so
Teach.
much for
Teach.
definitely articulating that. But I know Brother Tariq has some things he wants to eat on, so I'm gonna let him rock out for a little bit.
Yeah, because I'm hungry right now, bro. Like, so I'm like hungry as hell right now. All right, so being that uh I'm in the same area of science as our guest, the things that you were saying, and we're only 12 minutes in, the things that you were saying about understanding the science, I resonate deeply with that, because we live in a society where, a lot of us will take on something without understanding it fully. A lot of us will sell something, without us understanding it fully, So talk
Mm,
about the importance of, if you're given something, say if you decide you're going to go ahead and help sell a biologic, or you're going to go ahead and help sell a therapeutic that may come in a little small bottle, talk about how important it is to understand everything about that in its entirety, understand the science, understand how it works, so that you can be successful in giving it to whoever it is that you're trying to sell it to. So talk about how important that
we
is.
going
Yeah.
somewhere now. We
Oh
Oh
going
yeah.
yeah.
somewhere.
Oh yeah. You know what's gonna do
Really.
it.
Oh yeah. Yes, sir. Again, such a potent question, man. But without fully understanding the science behind something, you can never fully understand the damage or the potential benefit it has the
Mm,
ability to cause. So it's like you couldn't fathom how destructive that could be, really, or how beneficial it could be. I think going into things without the proper knowledge of what it is you're going into, um, really can leave you sometimes in a wild goose chase,
Hmm.
especially in the clinical trial industry. We won't move on development of a product until we first go through the preclinical testing stages. So
Come on.
these
Come
are
on.
biological assays, these are animal
The
experiments
exploratory
with
phase. Right.
the exploratory phase, because you
Right.
have to get a all-encompassing idea of what it is before you even think about going into a human with your first in human or phase 1 trials. So just in starting, we'll look at data from a monkey and a chimpanzee and extrapolate the data to see, okay, well, if that dose was tolerable in the monkey, we know that certain aspects of, you know, their renal system is very similar to that of the human. So we can expect that this dose will be tolerable in the human being. We start there and build up. But these are just to show what the white man and this world will do in starting certain areas of research. So I will say, if you want to go anywhere, make sure the foundation is strong before you build. You can't build a building or a skyscraper on sand. You have
Talk.
to have a solid foundation
Mm.
before you even think about going any further, bro.
Come on now,
Or
say today,
You
else,
can't
2021.
what you
Come
you
on
build
can't
now.
is
build
just
a
topical.
skyscraper on sand. That's gonna be
You
a
can't
shirt.
do
That's gonna be a clip.
that.
Man, I'm telling you that's so important. You know, because we and there's a lot of things I have in mind. You know, with that question, not only with the recent emergency COVID-19 vaccine, but also the different therapies that we take on
Mm,
ourselves. You
mm,
know, we have to understand the nature of a product, the nature of a molecule, how it functions in the
mm.
human body to really take advantage of its benefit and to
Yes, sir.
avoid the damage. You
Yes, sir.
know, so let's talk about, you know, biomedical sciences a little bit more, you know, and then we're going to go ahead
Please.
and get into the pharmaceutical industry. You
Yes,
know,
Sure,
sir. Yes,
so
sure.
sir.
by definition, how it, just based on your understanding of it, what is a biomedical scientist? What do they do? And how does that relate to the current pandemic that we're currently living in?
Oh, great question again.
And excuse me
Um,
for saying current twice. That was my bad.
no, no, you're good. Yes, sir. I'll say this: biomedical science is a very broad study of the sciences and the way they relate with the body. It's an excellent bridging study because it allows you to take a broad and a wide berth of all aspects of science. Now, most of the time, and I know a lot of people, when they think of biomedical scientists, they think of a laboratory, and that is
Mm,
correct. Most biomedical scientists do primarily work in the research phase and the very early phase, the discovery phase. We call it R and
Right.
D, but I would put biomedical scientists more in the discovery part,
Okay.
right.
primarily, and then research, obviously, later down. So, um, particularly in this country as well, a lot of biomedical scientists they work for. I don't know if you're familiar with NHS. They
Yes, sir.
work in pathology. So when you go
Mm.
into, for example, the hospital and you have a blood test, and you know they're checking your neutrophils, your white blood count, your red blood
Hmm.
count, and all of this kind of stuff. The biomedical scientist is the one, you know, looking through the microscope and checking, you know, what it is that's going wrong with you, and then is able to pass that diagnosis over to the doctor, who then
Position.
sits
Yeah.
down with you and lets you know
Yep.
exactly what's wrong with you. So for me, biomedical scientists a lot of the time are the unsung heroes, because without them, you know, we wouldn't be able to diagnose as efficiently um, as the doctors are able to do, or as it would seem they would do. Um, they also have many other functions. I've worked with biomedical scientists who strictly work in the oncology space and you know, diagnose tumors and all of this kind of stuff, benign, malignant. What is it? So when you've got an abnormal growth, when they take that excision and take a little sample of that tissue, um, the biomedical scientist in the lab is able to look into the tissue and understand whether you've actually got a harmful cancer growing or whether it is a non-harmful tumor that's growing and such. So for me, biomedical science is very broad. Those are some of the roles. Obviously, some of the biomedical scientists go into the pharmaceutical industry, as I have, but it's a beautiful study. Now I want to shout out an FOI brother Andrew Friex, who was my tutor through what we
Mm.
would call GCSEs. So I
Okay.
presume, I'm not sure what the equivalent is in the US at high school level before you go into college and university. But those are the exams you take as you're leaving school that allow you
Yeah.
to then enter
The
university.
SATs and all that. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
SATs.
Okay, yes,
Okay, cool.
sir.
So I was going to, my viewpoint was to go into university and only do biochemistry. And
Mm.
brother said something that stuck with me. He said, although it's a great subject, in a few years there will be robots that will be able to generally do what biochemists do on a day-to-day basis in
Mm.
that small pocket of what it was I wanted to focus on. So he actually encouraged me to broaden slightly and focus on biomedical science, but specialize in biochemistry so that I was
Mm.
able to apply my science to many different fields. So shout out to brother for being a brother and guiding me at a time when you're young and you have to make important decisions, but you don't necessarily know everything. So
Right.
shout
And
out.
Mentorship.
that's
Come on.
right. And that's important to understand too, not only mentorship, but understanding how you can branch off from
Oh, for
a
sure.
discipline.
That's
Biomedical
right.
sciences, we have a base in biochemistry, molecular, and some aspects of molecular medicine, but we
Yes,
can
sir.
go into certain areas. Like for me, I'm in cardiovascular sciences. You're in the pharmaceutical industry, so it's so many opportunities you can go. You mentioned, your friend going into oncology. You
Yes, sir.
mentioned, which is, tumors and cancer and things of that nature, specifically tumors though. And then you
Mm,
mentioned, if someone mentioned in the comments, you can go into different things with involving infectious diseases like HIV and
for
AIDS
sure.
and
For
different
sure.
things like that. So there's
Yeah.
so much that you can tap into with the biomedical sciences. So don't think that, we're just sitting in the lab,
Right.
just,
Right.
tinkering with people's DNA. We're doing a whole
Right.
lot of stuff. And some
Right.
of us are specialized in certain areas. I wasn't going to wait to become a heart surgeon to start making differences in
Come
cardiology and
on.
There you
different things of
go.
that
Come
nature.
Right.
on.
I was going to get it as soon as possible. So I went in
Right.
the lab and did what I had to do. So thank
Exactly.
you. This conversation is going great. Um, we have somebody saying, this is a great and important conversation. So, let's get into the thickness. We're talking about, we're dealing with a pandemic involving the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, and you are in the United Kingdom. We're in the United States.
Mhm.
So there are apparent differences in how each country is handling the pandemic. So talk about what your role has been like as a biomedical scientist in the pharmaceutical industry. What are some of the things that you've come in contact with as it relates to the vaccine? What has been
Mhm.
your journey? Have you been involved in that? And what has been your game plan moving forward
Mhm.
from now on forward?
Okay. Yes, sir. Well, as you can imagine, the pharmaceutical industry has been on high alert for over a year straight. To be fair, I would
Yes, sir.
say October, the end part of 2019, it really started to become apparent that there was something we needed to look into before they even mentioned it on the mainstream news channels. Pharmaceutical companies were starting to get whiff of what was happening. Um, as you said, in the UK, the situation is slightly different. We see, or they would be reporting that they've somewhat got it under control. However,
Mm.
broadening out slightly to Europe, Europe is on absolute fire with the COVID-19 vaccine. And as we're just an island that is currently a part of mainland Europe, um, it wouldn't be unreasonable to suggest that there's a potential third wave that could hit the UK. Um, so I would say this: we've been on high alert. We've been working in overdrive. I know in the US you have Operation Warp Speed and all of this kind of stuff, where they're trying to get this vaccine pushed onto our people as fast as possible. Um, and you can only imagine what the effects have been to the manufacturing process, to the research and development process, to actually running those clinical trials. And I want to say this: they're not trials that I've participated in consciously. I was offered the opportunity to assist in them, but given our instructions quite clearly, I did decline. Um, and that's one thing I always want to say. You can't compromise on what it is that you believe in and what it is that we've been taught for whatever financial gain you think you're going to receive.
Come on.
Right.
If
Come on.
we believe what we believe, we stand strong on that, and we don't get involved in that which we know um, has the potential to be very dangerous to our people and the population, the global population, period. What I have worked on, though, is some antiviral treatments for very ill coronavirus patients. So
Come
there
on.
are some drips, antiviral drips that coronavirus patients are treated with when they're in the coma state. So when they're in ICUs and intensive cares and they're in a coma, they are usually treated with an antiviral drip, which helps to clear up the lungs and the respiratory system from the coronavirus. So we've been blessed to work on those therapeutic treatments. Um, but where the vaccine is concerned, no, sir, I haven't worked closely on it. Um, but yeah, it's been a blessing. It's been everything's been fast. Everything's been um, super quick because of the time and because of the lives that are at risk. So we have had to speed up all of our processes in trying to get some of these treatments to patients as fast as possible. And where I work in the pharmaceutical industry, it's right at the beginning. So we focus on the clinical trial strategy before it even begins. For example, what would be the best countries to roll out the clinical trial? How many sites do we need? How many patients do we need for us to get the data that we need? You know, where would be the best place to take it? Which molecule should we pick from the preclinical development? What one is showing the greatest efficacy in the animal
Come on.
samples, in the biological assays? So we develop a lot of the strategy and do a lot of the feasibility before the clinical trial begins. So then after you've selected the sites, the countries, how many patients, you then start the startup process, which is getting the hospitals and the sites and the investigators, the physicians, in other words,
Mm.
to understand the science behind what it is you're bringing them. Because what a lot of people don't always understand or don't see is that it's actually the biomedical scientists and the scientists in general that have to sit down with the physician and explain to them
Come
how
on.
the therapy they're using will work, because their
Mm-hmm.
job is not always, or they're not always privileged to understand fully, how the therapy they have at their disposal works throughout all the systems of the
Right.
body.
Right.
What receptors does it bind to? They don't know all of that. They know if I administer it, it will do this. But
Right.
it's for us to then
Right.
explain the science behind what it is. So
Hey,
yeah, that's the role we play, bro.
man, you saying some real key stuff, man. I'm gonna give two shout outs. Shout out to a mentor of mine, Dr. Keeley, Ultimate Wellness Group. He's
Oh yes,
very
sir.
passionate,
Yes.
very
Yes,
aware of how important the doctor scientist relationship is because we work very
hugely.
closely together, man. And then I also want to shout out to the doctors who can do both, who can do the clinical aspect and
For
treating the
sure.
patients, that can also understand the science behind what it is
For
that they're
sure.
using. Those are typically your MD, PhDs,
For sure.
and those just that set of that skill set and being able to do both, or a doctor being able to have a good relationship with the scientist to understand what exactly is going into this treatment plan is everything to me,
Mm.
you know. So there's so much, man, so much to unpack here. I don't, and in saying that, I don't forgot the question I was going to ask, but I'm gonna let Jabril go ahead and take over until I can, remember what I was
Yes,
gonna say.
sir.
For sure.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sir. I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation. Family, this is the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent in Black culture. We are live on Facebook at the STEM Files, YouTube at the STEM Files, and remember to always follow us on Instagram at the STEM Files for all current and future content. Jabrilian Engineer Tariq Cardiac. I want to give some shout outs to people in the comments. Y'all have been lit. Brother Jonathan
Yes,
Carter, you have been the energy is felt,
blowing it
beloved
up.
brother. I hear everything you're saying, talking about the pimps and the pharmaceutical companies, talking about the earth being stem to be able to allow the earth to recover or allow the earth to heal. One of the things always going back to the teachings in the Holy Quran, it talks about exceeding the limits. And when you
Teach.
look at humanity, certain aspects or subsets within humanity being wicked husbandmen as it pertains
Mm,
to the
mm,
care of
Come
the
on,
earth,
come on.
right?
mm,
So when
mm,
you do
mm.
things and you overfish and you overly cut down trees and you burn things in excess, all to make a quick dollar or a dollar in
Teach.
excess, you get where we are today. Left to its
Teach.
own devices, the earth has certain systems by which it washes, cleanses, and reforms itself. And then
Mm,
you, as a proper husbandman, a proper shepherd, should be able to and equipped enough to be able to work in symbiosis with your planet.
teach.
But
Teach.
see,
That's right.
when your concern is access to money, or your concern
Mm,
is to tip the scale so that a certain percentage of the world controls 90+% of the wealth, right? When you think about what is money, money is currency, right?
mm,
Current is that which flows, right?
mm.
You think about electrical engineering and everything, you have current, you have voltage, resistance. If you have resistance or resistors, that is which hinders or resists the flow of current. But if the
Mm,
That's
nature
right.
of currency is to flow from hand to hand, household to household, business to business, what happens when you have the proverbial clog in the system? You get where
Mm,
we
mm,
are today. So,
that's right.
mm.
the reason why I'm saying all of this is because science, technology, engineering, mathematics, when used with someone who cares about their fellow man and wants
Teach.
to propel society forward in the best of manners, will heal the world. We talked about immune
Teach.
boosters. We talked about these things, right? So,
Let's go.
one of the things that I see when we follow the money trail, right? It just seems like
Mm,
the United States is a service-based economy. So if we're
mm.
not cutting hair, going to the movies, you know, being at cafes, doing things, we're not making money.
Yes, sir.
So you could not impose a city, state, national wide curfew or quarantine for long periods of time because you have created an environment where freedom and license is misconstrued. I can do what
Teach.
I want, where I want, with whom I want, for how long I want. So now
Mm,
anything that resembles control, I
mm,
reject. So to
mm.
wear a mask is overly politicized and polarized,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
To you know stay indoors and to not travel is overly politicized, right? Where you have other countries, I believe, if I'm maybe mistaken, New Zealand, other places got
Mm-hmm.
control of the coronavirus and got down
Yes, sir.
to like zero or they kind of like got rid of it with pre-vaccine.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
when you
sir.
look at the United States, why is the overt concern the
Mm.
prevalence of getting everybody herd immunity through these vaccines, which, if we understand, are really gene therapy? So that's a whole nother conversation.
Whole nother conversation.
Whole
That's
nother
part two.
conversation. So what I want to understand, we have to always understand the motivation behind things. And like you
Mm.
said, the healthy marriage between the MD or the doctor and the scientist. We saw in Vaxxed, if Vaxxed the
Mm-hmm.
movie, right, where a lot
Yes,
of
sir.
doctors didn't know what was in certain vaccines they were
That's right.
administering, and through
That's
the
right.
through the kindness of their heart and trying to be servants, right, in that industry, administer certain things. So we
That's right.
always have to
That's
be
right.
careful and understand that it all starts with prevention. But when you're trying to quote unquote get control of something to where you can reopen your economy,
Mm.
you're trying to do this quick fix in the form of vaccines, as opposed to
Mm.
getting to the root of things, right? Why are Black people more predisposed to
Yes, sir.
coronavirus or COVID-19, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
there are things that we definitely have to understand
For sure.
and be made aware of as we move forward. I just want to ask another question really quickly, beloved. Um, as we move forward, one of the things that I think is constantly misconstrued, since we're on the topic of vaccines, is the Nation of Islam's position on vaccines in general,
Hmm.
right? And I have to always educate people on this because they think that we are anti-vaccine.
Yes, sir.
What is the position of the Nation of Islam on vaccines,
Yes, sir.
and what is our how is that different or similar to our position on COVID-19 vaccines of certain variety?
Yes, sir. I'll start by saying this. We're anti-dirty vaccine.
Come
That's
on,
Mm.
what we're anti. The Nation of Islam is not anti vaccination. We're not anti-science. We are open to the science because it's intrinsically related to our teachings. We're taught that in the Nation of Islam, Islam is mathematics. We know that mathematics is a science in and of itself.
come
So
on,
we're definitely not anti-vaccine, but we're anti what's being produced at this point in time, because the history best rewards its research.
come
These
That's
on.
right.
vaccines and vaccines that have previously come forth from, specifically, I'm going to say, the US and the UK governments, have been used as a weapon against black people in general, but particularly black males, particularly where
Come on.
autism and Asperger's and other um, illnesses and diseases relating to the brain are concerned. So until these vaccines have thoroughly um, been tested and we've developed our own vaccines without some of these delivery methods that are deeply heavy metal based,
Come on.
that have neurotoxic effects on the black male and the black female, particularly also the Latino male, the Latino female. Only when they've been removed and we produce clean vaccines for our people will we then be encouraging them to use it. So I would say we're anti-dirty vaccine, and what we have at the moment is a scourge and a mass flooding where the vaccine market specifically is concerned of dirty vaccines that unequivocally do cause autism and many other neurotoxic diseases to accelerate and develop in young black men, women, and children. So I'll
Mm.
start there for the beginning of that question, bro.
Awesome.
I had
That.
so
Oh,
we
good,
got to
bro.
go to this, Tariq. We got to unpack this because it's
Yes, sir.
4:38 and Sister Lisa Muhammad just asked a wonderful question,
Oh, well,
and I'm gonna
trust and believe.
turn this.
We not
No,
rushing.
look,
But go ahead, bro.
listen, bro, listen. I'm
We
because
not
I gotta make
rushing.
sure that y'all get to this. So,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna pull this up, right? So this, I'm gonna have this for both of you. Y'all both can build on this, right? So, Sister Lisa Muhammad asked, can you explain how the mRNA works and the effects it has on our system? That has been a big question because some people want to know what is mRNA? Is it dangerous in of itself? Is that experimental? Or is it when it's in conjunction with this current therapy, this current treatment? So both of you just go ahead and build on that. We'll start with you, obviously, beloved brother Akil, because our guest. And Brother Tariq, if you want to tap in, please do.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, big
And
bro.
yes, sir. As it's a double, I'll start off, brother Tariq. But mRNA just stands for messenger RNA. And the job of messenger RNA is to, pretty much in simple terms, deliver a message.
That's
It's
it.
used in a process called transcription to duplicate the DNA that is already inside of you. Now, I know my brother's going to get into it because I've heard him teach about this before, but
Praise be to Allah.
where it can potentially become dangerous is what is the message that the RNA or the messenger RNA that is being injected in you, what is the
Come
message that it's
on.
translating?
Mm-hmm.
Until
Right.
we understand what code or genetic code is being translated by that messenger RNA, only then can we determine whether it's safe or not safe to
Teach.
use. So the basic role of messenger RNA is to carry a message and transcribe it into new DNA. And it's a natural DNA replication process that our bodies go through, where they will copy the code or the message on the mRNA and translate it or convert it into new DNA.
That's
Mm,
right. That's right.
I'll pick
And you
off
said
that question right there, bro.
right, right. And you said something very key. You know, you talked about transcription and how that's the copying process. And then we also got to understand the translation process, which is how the cell eventually would use that information.
Yes, sir.
So you said something very key. What is being delivered? What is in that mRNA that's being delivered to eventually be translated into something that the cell will eventually do? You know, so we got to understand that the mRNA is a very simple molecule or piece of a molecule, you know, that is used to copy information, and then that cell takes it and does what it has to do. So it's not so mRNA itself isn't dangerous. We
That's
produce
right.
mRNA. That's what our body does. That's how
come
things
on.
work. The danger comes from, like my brother said, what is the mRNA being used from? Also, where is the mRNA being extracted from?
Key.
Come
You know,
Key.
because
on.
if they're making an mRNA vaccine, and I want the audience to understand this very clearly, if they're making an mRNA vaccine, one of the first things they have to do is get a template. That template
Key.
comes from a human source.
Key.
You
Yes,
know,
sir.
so
Mm,
if you want to attack a people, you're gonna have to go into the very essence or the very DNA of that people. So
Key.
just
mm,
imagine where these templates or these DNA samples are coming from.
Key.
mm,
Key.
They're
Key.
gonna
Key.
come from
Key.
the people that they're going after, you know?
Right.
So
mm.
and this is good. This is a follow-up question to I had. Shout out to Sister Lisa out of Atlanta.
Yes, man.
She's been a
Thank you
very,
so
very
much.
Great
yes,
question.
yes, very pivotal in my growth and development personally. There's been a lot of things that we've talked about in the past. And she's just a great sister. I love learning from her. And but my follow-up question is we talked about how dangerous a vaccine is. We talked about what we're against as a nation, as the nation of Islam. What are some of the things, the key things that goes into a good vaccine? You know,
Mm,
we know what a dirty vaccine is made of. We know what goes into the things that they produce. But if, say, for example, the three of us just sat down in the laboratory and produced a good, valuable vaccine, what are some of the things that will go into that vaccine? What would make it beneficial to the human being?
Yes, sir. I would start, and I like to focus a lot of the time on the vehicle or the transporter that is used to deliver the biological material contained into the vaccine into the human body. Um, Now, a lot of the times, what we see is heavy metals such as aluminium and iron and zinc in the incorrect forms are used
Mm,
mm,
to protect the biological material as it makes its way into the human body. And
right.
that's where
mm,
a lot of the toxicity is developed. So I think at a starting position, you have to start with non toxic materials to deliver the biological material that you're trying to deliver. I think,
mm.
secondly, we have to look generally in how, or historically, how vaccines are created. Usually, what you have is an attenuated compound. So, what they
Hmm.
would do, for example, let's say in the flu vaccine, they have a flu vaccine, and how it works is they will take the flu virus and they will make it non-harmful. That is the basis of the science. That's called attenuation. They will make it non-harmful to the body and then inject it into the body, allowing your immune system to build up a natural immunity to it. That's generally how vaccines work. This vaccine, however, as we've just discussed, doesn't work in that way. We're taking mRNA, as my brother Tariq explained, and injecting that into the body and allowing it to um, deliver its message, triggering the translation transcription process, the DNA replication process. which they are saying produces the antibodies to SARS-CoV-2. So for me, a lot of the problems that we have as a people lie with the heavy metals. And if we were to sit down today and go into that, I think we would have to find for sure, and there are better ways which we can go into, but we would have to find for sure better and safer delivery methods for the organic material or the vaccine material that we're trying to protect our people with.
Mm.
Man.
Lord, Lord,
So
Lord.
right. We 45 minutes into the show, and it
This
only
is
feels like it was like
crazy.
15.
45
Right.
This is
minutes already. Wow.
this is
Wow.
insane. This is
Yes, sir.
insane.
Right. We're not gonna worry about I don't know what your time frame is like, Akil, but we're not gonna worry about reaching that hour cap. We're just gonna go now. We usually keep it at an hour because no one likes to watch a 6 hour long podcast, but we
Right.
try to keep it
Right.
at a length. But if there's
Cool.
anything that we talk about and goes over an hour, just go with the flow.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
Yes, sir. We don't have
and if
enough
you got
clout
if you got
yet
to
for the
take
six
off.
hour podcast.
For sure, man.
Oh my God!
We're
All right,
just
so
at
we
the
had another
beginning.
question. Yeah, say that again.
No, so we're just at the beginning. So for sure, if we can come back and do part two, part three,
Oh
and just
Right,
keep it
yes.
rolling. Because I know you want to keep it to an hour, just so it's it's in the
digestible.
right digestible, right, for the people. We
Right, right.
don't want to tire everyone out in one night.
Okay, cool. So we got another question from Lisa. She said, "Can you explain what it means that nanoparticles used in the vaccines
Oof,
can do when they cross the blood-brain barrier? What are the dangers?"
man, these are great questions, man. These are great questions. And the blood-brain barrier, that's something that I could spend a whole night talking about, because that's really where the danger is and where the problems lie. The metals that we were speaking about, the danger is when they cross the blood-brain barrier, and then they're able to cause the neurotoxic effects that we've been speaking about. Now, generally, you have blood vessels that run throughout the brain and are constantly passing molecules to and from the brain tissue and other parts of the body. Now, when we have nanoparticles and small particles, but dense, where aluminium and some of these other very harmful metals are concerned, when they get into the brain, this is where a lot of the damage where our young people occurs. This is where certain parts of the brain are damaged that are responsible for development, responsible for speech, responsible for hearing, responsible for taste, smell. This is where they're damaged in infants and young children because those particles were able to cross the blood brain barrier. And when you really understand the science as it relates to the blood brain barrier and how easy it is to actually produce molecules that won't cross that barrier, you understand what's been done to us as a people is quite literally willful, because it's quite easy to stop nanoparticles from passing that barrier if you don't want them to. And the more you then look into that and research, well, how um, did where some of these vaccines concern these nanoparticles, how were they so easily able to pass this barrier? You start to understand that there was some science and research that was done to ensure that it happens and to ensure that it affects us in the way that it is. So it's a great question, Sister Lisa. Thank you. And that's
Mm,
something we definitely have to dig into more, Brother Tariq, because I think it's very willful and very intentional what's being done.
absolutely,
Mm, mm,
absolutely.
mm.
Man,
Woo.
this is been an interesting
Praise be to Allah.
program. Man, praise be to Allah. So it's a we definitely gonna have to come back for part two. Because I want to go, and this is one of I'm gonna ask this question. As we're getting close to the hour. Um, but before we do that, let's go ahead and do a quick promo. Jabril, what's new with the final call?
What's new with the final call? Well, I thought I was current with the final call,
Current,
right?
my bad. What's
Family,
current?
no, yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Family, for those who don't know, the Final Call newspaper is the number one tool for the number one program, which is the resurrection of the 30 to 40 million more dead to the Lamb of God, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is our newspaper in the Nation of Islam. This is news you can use. If you're not getting it and reading it weekly, I don't know what else you're doing. Visit www.finalcalldigital.com to get your digital subscription. Also, if you're in the Philadelphia area, if you're in Norfolk, if you're in Virginia, or in the UK near our brother, make sure you can reach out for your physical edition as well, as we make
Yes,
sure
sir.
to
That's
get
right.
that to you in a timely manner. Food shortages, COVID-19, fears of a major crisis, always local, national, and international news you can use and share with your loved ones as well. So make sure to tap in.
That's right. That's right. And I love this because all three of us are active FOI scientists who have not only upbringings for nation building, but current activity in nation building. So this is a beautiful episode, a beautiful platform. Um, man, there's so much to ask, but I'm gonna go
Yes.
ahead and close it out with this final question. This episode is entitled "The Inner Workings of Big Pharma." What has been the overall financial benefit of the pharmaceutical industry, especially in your country, as it relates to developing a vaccine for COVID-19? What are some of the benefits that they receive, and what's in it for them, in a sense?
Yes, sir. And that's a good question because I'll answer it and then I'll touch on something that Brother Jabril touched on earlier in terms of the relationship between money and healthcare, or the
Yes,
Right.
sir.
research industry in healthcare. I want to touch on that just before we close. Um, the COVID vaccine is probably the biggest money maker where the pharmaceutical industry is concerned. I would say, if not in the last 20 to 30 years, potentially ever. Um,
Mm,
and I'll say it because of this. The revenue generated from individual companies, Pfizer, AstraZeneca,
Come
Moderna,
on.
BioNTech, is into the tens of billions individually.
mm,
So as a
mm,
collective, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars just on this first round of vaccines. Because what they're now gearing up for is not just, you get your two jabs and that's it. When they're now gearing up for quarterly vaccination where the coronavirus vaccine is concerned. Because what they're now saying is, um, we can only guarantee that you get between 90, maybe 120 days of protection if you're lucky. And that's their
mm,
words, not mine. So what they're now saying is to maintain protection all year round. And I don't know if all of this has hit mainstream media news yet. They're saying every 3 months you're going to have to get what you call a booster jab, which means now instead of
mm,
us administering 2 vaccinations per individual a year, we now get to do 2 every quarter, right? So the financial benefit to uh, pharmaceutical companies is really unexplainable, and it shows in their reaction and the race that they had to be the first one to produce the vaccine. But then on the other side, you also have the governments now who are trying to stockpile vaccination and then sell it at a premium even to countries, sorry, who weren't able to get um, any
mm,
vaccinations or allocated vaccinations first time round. So now you see the US and the UK reselling the AstraZeneca vaccination at 3 times the price that they bought it in
mm,
a world or global health emergency. So it just shows that these people are not interested in
Mm.
curing coronavirus per se, but they're more interested in attempting to prop up an already destroyed economy by extorting countries that they were able to bully in the first place away from having access to the coronavirus vaccine equally or in the same way as they were. So there's a huge fight. There's huge financial benefit, but for me, it's deep rooted in wickedness, sorry, and unrighteous activity. And this brings me on to the point that Brother Jabril mentioned earlier. When it comes to healthcare and when it comes to science, what I've learned being in the pharmaceutical industry, there's no price you can put on something that will help to improve the condition of a person that is suffering. One
That's
of the
right.
main problems with the pharmaceutical industry, especially in Europe, you have a measure of effectiveness called a quality, which is a quality adjusted life year, meaning if we administer this drug, this medical device, this therapy, what will be the quality of life that that person will receive as opposed to them not having it? And that if we give it to them, what will be the financial benefit of
Mm.
administering it? If the finance or if the financial benefit does not reach a certain threshold for the company, so meaning if it's too expensive to produce, even though it may still be profitable, if it doesn't hit a certain threshold, they won't move forward, even though there are people that will benefit from it. So
Come
they
on.
will make money, not as much money as they would like to make. So
Hmm.
instead of them produce and give it to those that need it, they choose to put it to the side for something else. And this is where really you can see we don't approach science at this point in time. We don't approach healthcare from where God wants us to approach it from. We approach it from where um, our pockets approach it from. We approach it from really a
That's right.
very low place where I feel that science and medicine and healthcare is spiritual and it has to be deeply entwined with that in which Allah God wants. So
Mm.
that's something we or us three, I believe, have to fix. And if it be the will of Allah, will fix and will help to alleviate because we can't put money in front of improving the conditions and the lives of our people. So thank you for the
Wow.
question, man. It was an amazing one. Thank you.
Praise be
I
to
have
Allah. Yes.
I have one
Go
thing
ahead,
to
bro.
say because
Me too.
because
Go ahead.
that's how you. I think we're gonna end the show on that because brother just that was amazing, beloved. Well articulated elocution on 1,000. Like your
Man.
speech pattern, bro. Like I'm a big fan of like when people are able to parse and make things digestible. I want to give a very special shout out to all of our parents. I'm going to
Yes,
shout out
sir.
my own
Yes.
parents, Sister
Praise is
Kenny
due
and
to
Brother
Allah.
Kyle, and I'm going to
Yes.
tell you
Shout out.
why this platform right now would not be possible. First off, without Almighty God Allah and the person of Master
Yes, sir.
Muhammad,
That's right.
and then our parents recognizing the benefit and the great value in that teaching to then
Teach.
impart in all of us through uh, at some point of our lives a homeschool process by which
Teach.
we would have the thought, the love of our people, the love of
Mm,
STEM, and the love of the
mm,
teaching to create something like this.
mm,
So,
mm, mm.
mom and dad, I know y'all watching. Thank y'all so much for all that you've done to impart in myself
Yes, sir.
and part of my
Yes,
That's
sir.
younger
right.
brother. I mean, thank you to Brother Tariq's parents, Sister Kubila, and I'm forgetting your father's name at this point,
Brother
beloved.
Brother
Pardon me.
Troy.
Brother Troy,
Brother Troy,
for what
right.
you've done to impart Brother Tariq and your
Yes, sir.
parents, Brother Aqeel. Please
Yes,
give
sir.
them the sincere love and greetings from your two brothers of Assalamu
Yes,
alaikum
sir.
and tell them we are very thankful for
Yes,
That's
sir.
right.
them being the agents that Allah used to bring you into existence so that we can have you on this wonderful platform. For all those out here that are interested in being guests, this is your platform.
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
Our desire is to share the majesty that is your level of intellectual property and prowess in your respective discipline. And we want to
Mm.
connect you with others who are interested and want to develop themselves, whether it's in exactly what you want to do or something different that they want to do. We want to be able to inspire, educate, and connect to ultimately build a nation of freedom, justice, and equality, which we
That's
know
Beautiful.
right.
is Islam as taught by the
That's
most
right.
honorable Elijah
Beautiful.
Muhammad. So
That's
I
right.
just
Beautiful.
wanted
That's
to
right.
say thank you,
Mm.
brothers. I'm always
Thank you.
excited and ecstatic to be on this show and to serve in this capacity. And we are students and we are service first at all times. So with
Yes,
that,
sir.
family, brother, please let us know how people can get in contact with you if they may want to pursue and ask you additional questions or connect in any other way.
Yes, sir, for sure. I think Brother Tariq just shot my email address up on the screen. So please, by all means, get in contact with me and let's build. And as Brother Tariq and Brother Jabril have said, I want to thank your parents for raising the two brothers that I now have, and I'm able to connect with all the way from the UK and help our father, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to really um, um, build out what it is that he asked us to build many,
Yes,
many
sir.
years ago with the nine ministries
Yes.
and
That's right.
all
Yes.
of this kind of stuff.
Talk about it.
We gotta make our father's word flesh, because there are parts that are really for us to build um, and take on, and that we will do. And yeah, of course, big shout out to my parents, brother Clive, sister Avril, for
Yes, sir.
pouring into me all that they did, connecting me to the source, Master Fard Muhammad, a lying
That's
person.
right.
Um, and I thank them, love you all, and thank you again for allowing me to be on this platform, brothers.
Yes, sir. One more
Beautiful.
thing,
Praise
brother
be to
Tariq,
Allah.
I will be remiss. I'm so sorry. Cause see,
No, you good. You
we
good.
gotta come correct, and you know where I'm going with it. See, it's something to be said about who allows you to get to a certain point, but it's
Uh huh.
another thing to be said about who tolerates you where you are and
Oh
further
my
pushes
God.
you to move forward. So,
Oh
Teach.
my
brother
God.
Akil, are you
Very,
married,
very, very.
beloved brother? Are you married, sir?
No, I'm engaged, so soon.
All praises be to
Yes,
Congratulations.
Allah.
sir.
Praise be
Yes,
to
sir.
Congratulations.
Allah.
So
Yes, sir.
I need to shout out
Yes, sir.
the lovely wives of myself and brother
And
Tariq. My
you better not be saying that just because she right there.
no, listen, beloved, listen. My father will call me after this. No, but not. But it's all praises to Allah. My wife, Sister Khalifa Muhammad, who we will be married 3 years this coming July
Praise be
22nd,
to Allah.
and
That's right.
brother Tariq's lovely wife, Sister Kiera. Without them pushing us constantly and being at our side, letting us know from the female perspective what we can do better on
Mm.
our platform, how we can move our
Praise
company
be to
forward,
Allah.
we would not be the men that we are today or striving to be. The Honorable Mr. Farrakhan said, a man don't know who he is without a woman,
That's right.
right?
Teach.
So
That's
we are
right.
finding out who we are daily, hourly,
Every
by
day,
the minute.
hourly,
All
by the
praises
minute.
be to Allah.
Praise be to
I
All
Allah.
like
praise
that.
be to
Praise
Allah.
be
Yes,
to
yes.
Allah.
That is so important. And it's crazy because I was going to ask you that same thing. Because what we do in our work, when you have a woman there to not only critique you personally, but also critique the things, the business endeavors that you get involved in, it's
Right.
just it's a different type of vibe. It's a different type of vibe. So I encourage all those brothers, especially the brothers that playing around, just hanging on that
Talk,
single status and not
talk.
not
Right,
taking
bro.
that step to complete your faith.
Right, right,
I'm
right.
telling you, you're missing out
Yes,
big
sir.
time.
Yes, sir.
So I want to once again thank my wife, Sister Kiera, and every black man who is doing something positive, who has a wife who is backing him 100%. Man, praise be to Allah. But I want to say one more thing before we close out. I want to say one more thing before we close out. As you've seen on the show, there's value in every aspect of science. Don't
Absolutely.
let no one tell you, I don't care who they are, that because of the things our enemy has done to us, that a certain area of science is bad.
Come on.
Don't let nobody tell you that we don't need laboratories.
Teach, teach,
Don't
teach.
let
Come on.
nobody tell you that we don't need biotechnology. Biotechnology produced our open enemy. It was
Teach,
here
Mm,
before they were.
teach,
The
teach,
right.
teach.
Come on.
concept of it was here before they were. All the
Teach.
sciences were here before they were. So don't let anybody, and I know this sounds a little aggressive. Don't let anybody
That's
tell you that a certain area of science is useless, pointless, or not valuable.
teach.
Because
Teach.
I guarantee you, every aspect of human endeavor is touched by a certain by a certain type of science, whether they understand it or not.
Come
So
on.
biotechnology, clinical laboratory science, biomedical science, any science you can think of that is used by the open enemy to kill us outright.
Come on.
Don't let anyone tell you that it's not valuable, because you can use the same science to fight the things that these enemies are putting you through.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Real
Go
talk.
ahead, bro. Go
So
ahead.
Woo!
I just wanted to get that off my
Woo!
chest.
Go ahead.
Just wanted to get
Beloved,
that off my chest.
the energy.
Um,
Right. Go ahead.
The
I'm
energy. Come
sorry,
on now.
I got into teacher mode, and it kind of just, I had to let that out because it's been on my mind and on my spirit for years now. I see it on
Yes,
social
sir.
media by people that we, hold dear to us, and out in every single environment that you can think of. So just remember that fact, especially if somebody who's going into it, oh no, brother, you shouldn't do that. It's not going to be here in the hereafter. Don't let anybody tell you that. I promise you, it will.
It will.
All right, so that's it for the STEM files. I'm your host, Tariq Cardiac. We got Jabril Engineer, Brother Aqeel Muhammad. This has been another great show, another great weekend of the STEM files. And also, we are also live every Saturday with National Network View. So we're also broadcasting on their network as
Yes, sir.
well. And that's a Black-owned media outlet. You got your CNN, and then you got your National Network View for all your real, truthful Black content. And it don't even have to be Black. It's just truth. Real
True.
talk.
Come on.
So
Excellent.
right. So check them out on Instagram, NNV News, National Network View on Facebook. Really great platform. We support them in everything they do, and they do the same for us. So tap into that as well. But once again, Tariq Muhammad, Jabril Engineer, Aqeel Muhammad. This has been a STEM file. So for all those tuning in, stay tuned on our social media platforms for the next announcement on who our guest is going to be this coming Thursday and Saturday. The STEM Files Facebook, STEM Files YouTube, and at the STEM Files on Instagram. All right, family. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Peace.